Well, it looks like we have all the board members that are going to be here tonight. I'd like to call the Tuesday, April 20th meeting of the Topsham Planning Board to order. And Patty, if you could do the roll call, please.
Okay, Don Span is absent, I understand, and Joshua Spooner is absent. Scott Libby.
Present.
Ronald Bisson.
Present.
Larry Brand.
Present.
Dan Flegg.
Present.
And Bruce Benoit.
Present.
So everyone's here except Span and Spooner.
Yep, and I think both of them have been excused as far as other items. So first up is the approval of the minutes from our April 6th meeting. Anyone on the board have any comments on those meeting minutes?
Just one on page 5. There's a missing M on where it says Topsham Fair all, but that's about it, Patty.
Thank you.
Fine tooth comb there, Larry.
Yeah, I move. I move we adopt the minutes as submitted with that one M.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, it's unanimous. All right, got a couple of projects on the agenda tonight, and as Andrew mentioned, there's a project review for Mallet Woods plus a blasting permit for Mallet Woods that is under the public hearing. Then 2 things for the Jersey Mike's proposal, and had made the recommendation that we deal with both of the Mallet Woods items first, and then move along to the Jersey Mike's items. That works for the rest of the board. I'd like to move forward with that. Seeing a lot of shaking heads. All right, so the first item up is Mallet Woods LLC applying for final subdivision approval for phase 3A and approval of construction drawings for phases 3A and 3B at the Forest Glen tax map U21 lot 65. We're continuing this from our April 6th meeting. All right, Andrew, did you have anything to say, or move it on to Chris?
Yeah, I'll just summarize things real quickly. At your last meeting, you tabled things just to get everything in order and get some answers to a couple of questions that were outstanding. The applicant has revised their plan set and has resubmitted that. It's been reviewed. Those technical comments or those technical issues have been reviewed by our technical reviewer, Tom Saucier. Project from a technical perspective is ready to be approved. We've gotten all the necessary documentation, less the information related to bonding. The approval tonight is for the final subdivision approval of 7 lots and the approval of construction plans for the entirety of the subdivision. Those first 7 lots, phase 3A, need to be bonded. I did have correspondence today that relayed that there would likely be a shared or escrow checking account established for the town and the developer to share, in which the town then has the authority to approve drawdown requests in order to pay the contractor and ensure that the work is completed as it was designed and intended to be installed. Otherwise, there are draft findings of fact in your memo, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. There's also an associated blasting permit that you'll be hearing and reviewing after this application.
All right, thank you, Andrew. I just had one quick question, and that goes to the kind of the 2 items here. You know, I expected we'd be looking at 3A subdivision plan after we tabled it. As far as also looking at construction plans for the 3A and 3B, does that mean we're focused for construction plans? We're talking about the road and the stormwater. Okay. So basically the subdivision is just those 7 lots. The rest is, so we can talk about the blasting permit later, et cetera, the kind of the groundwork that needs to be done. Okay. All right, Chris, did you want to
Just to be clear, Scott, maybe I'm a little bit confused. We're approving construction plans that show the construction of both phase 3A and then the entirety of the completed subdivision. When Dan and Chris are ready to come back in for the approval of 3B, it will be explicitly for the plat instead of any sort of construction plan. So when you review final subdivision plans, it's kind of a mismatch of actually two documents. One is the legal plat that gets recorded at the registry that creates the lawful lots that then can be sold, as well as kind of the infrastructure development site plan like documents. The intention is for all of those technical issues for both phases, which have already been permitted by DEP, to all be approved in one blessing tonight. So with a subsequent visit, it would just be a simple plat and the associated bonding that would need to go in hand with that bonding.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to convey. Much better job. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Chris.
Andrew explained everything very well. There's not much more I can add. I do have a PowerPoint of some plans if you want to go through them, or otherwise I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. It's up to you.
No, I mean, I think we saw the PowerPoint, the plans themselves. Maybe it looked like there were a few specific changes that related directly to some of Tom Saussier's comments and some of the comments we had. Maybe first we could open up to the board for questions, and if there are any specifics, ways to address those questions through the plans, we could bring up that PowerPoint. Okay. Dan, do you have any questions? You're the first one up on my Zoom screen.
Yeah, I would just, Chris, could you just kind of provide maybe a summary since we last met a couple weeks ago, the things you incorporated into the updated plan?
Sure. Most of the requirements were technically related to the phase 3A or the end of the road at phase 3A. Tom had questions about the turnaround grading, how the utilities were going to outlet in the first phase, those kinds of questions we went through with Tom, and we updated the plan to reflect those conversations. I guess I could continue on regarding stormwater. Stormwater is going to be treated by a pond. Ultimately, when we build both phases, phase 3A and 3B, temporarily, we're going to outlet the stormwater at the end of phase 3 into a temporary level spreader so it can dissipate into the wetlands slowly, but it doesn't get treatment credit as far as the DEP is concerned. Ultimately, that area will need to drain to the pond for treatment. And this whole phase is being treated by that one pond.
Great, thank you.
All right, Larry, do you have any questions?
I do not at the present time, Scott. Thank you.
Okay. Bruce, how about yourself? The cake looking.
No, I'd like to thank Chris and Dan and everybody for bringing it all together clean like this. All set. My only question is for Andrew. When you keep talking about the bond, I'm assuming you're referring to the performance guarantee, which can take several forms, one of which is a bond, and they're choosing escrow, or is there a separate bond that you're talking about?
Nope,
No, that I use bonding, unfortunately, interchangeably with all performance guarantee, but it is performance guarantee, and they are choosing an escrow mechanism.
Yeah, and in that case, does that was still outstanding according to your latest memo, I think, or something. Does the condition number 11 in the draft motion cover that?
It does, yes.
So there's no reason to hold up anything based on that?
Negative.
Okay, I'm all set.
All right. Ron, did you have anything?
No, I'm all set, Scott.
You're all set. Muted myself. Yeah, I'm all set too. I do see there's a number of attendees. not necessarily a public hearing, but I would open it up if any of the attendees have a question that they'd like to ask. Please just raise your hand and Andrew can let you into the meeting. I don't see any. All right.
One. We got a bite.
Okay.
Amy Wallace.
Hey, Amy.
Hi, I live at 6 Mallet. Where the pond will be is right behind us. We have a concern about the blasting and the trees that are left here, and the trees are in horrible shape. And there's many leaning ones, and we're concerned that if they're not taken down prior to blasting, there will be some trouble on our property. We've brought this up to Mr. Catlin. We brought it up to a number of people. And we know they're in the setback, but it's going to set back. We've already had a few trees that have fallen down on neighbors' properties.
All right, thank you. Chris or Dan, did you have anything to address that or any comments?
Yeah, I'll chime in here. We did have a couple trees to date that did blow down in those several storms that we had from last fall through the winter. And, you know, I was dealing with one homeowner there, and basically he had a concern about some of the trees that were left in the setback area. We walked with a forester and a guy that works in the woods and looked at them, and we're willing to do it again. I obviously don't want to cut all of them down, but if there's something there that's a threat, we would certainly take it down before it did some damage. So we're certainly going to take a look at it again. And I don't think the blasting is not down at that end of the street. So I don't think that the blasting is going to affect that.
All right, thank you.
Do you have one more raised hand? Danielle Murray.
All right, Danielle.
Hi, yes, I'm Danielle and I'm at 14 Mallet. We're the ones that the tree almost hit our house within about 6 inches of our bedroom window. Thankfully, Dan was great and he did get it cleaned up the next day. However, we do definitely have concerns about the rest of the pine trees that are still behind our house. I'm sitting here also with our neighbor, Linda, who lives directly next door to us at 12 Mallet. And she also has a lot of concerns about the trees behind her house. Now, where is the blasting exactly happening? More towards Goodwill, or what side are we talking about?
The blasting is happening to the, down along the new area on, I guess that's south of the existing end of that road, right?
Yeah, it's
Merriman Way.
roughly first 360 feet.
Yeah.
From where the existing road already is?
Yes.
From the end of Maryland Way,
Yes.
where that junction.
Well, we would definitely appreciate somebody coming to look at these trees. I mean, we're sitting outside right now and it's pretty windy and they're not looking so great.
All right, thank you.
James Morris.
Yeah, also on the
Hey,
topic
James.
of trees, I'm at 8 Mallet and I've noticed there are a number of large branches and logs just kind of hanging out that have fallen since the trees have been cut down and they're ready to fall out of the thin branches that are still supporting them at any moment. They're in addition to, you know, property damage that's a safety concern. I was also curious, is that big pile of rocks and rubble what you're going to blast back there?
We're going to use those rocks. We're talking about either grinding it into gravel or, you know, we'll use them in the construction at some point. That's right where the center of the road is, so they're not going to stay there. That was left over from the very first phase.
Are you going to be doing rock grinding?
We could be. We're evaluating that right now.
All right. Thank you. Any other hands, Andrew? No? All right. Well, thanks for the input and thanks for your answers to those, Dan. Any other comments from the board? All right, entertain a motion from the board.
I'll try that, Scott. If
All right.
pursuant to section 225 of the Topsham Code and consistent with the findings of fact set forth in a memo from Andrew to the board dated April 16th, I hereby move for final subdivision plan application approval by Mallet Woods LLC for the 7-lot subdivision phase 3A and the construction plans for phases 3A and 3B located at tax map U21 lot 65, subject to the conditions identified in said memo dated April 16, 2021, which are
And
1
just
through 20.
just one item. I think it's under chapter 191, right? Rather than 225.
Correct.
Yes, thank you. I must have been reading from a wrong section. So I would amend that to say subject to 191 of the Topsham Code.
All right. Any comments or a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, Ron, second that. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, Patty, please show us unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll move on to the drilling and blasting permit application for blasting at 7 Forest Glen for the removal of 3,000 cubic yards at tax map U21 lot 65. Andrew, did you have something to introduce us?
This is a blasting permit that's here for you to take a look at because it exceeds the 300 yard threshold for CEO approval. This is all associated with the development of Mount Woods phases 3A and 3B. Did note Dan just identified that there'd be some crushing activities taking place or potentially could be. That could have some noise and vibration issues in addition to the blasting. But this is a pretty standard blasting permit.
All right. And was anyone, Chris, were you going to present on this or someone presenting, or we're just diving right into it?
Truthfully, I didn't submit the application, so I guess
Okay.
I was expecting Nancy Bartlett from the blasting company to be with us, but she's not on. So.
Okay. Do you think she didn't know we were going to move her up a little bit?
I advised her to be on.
Anyway, yeah.
I mean, I would say I wouldn't hesitate without a presentation if you feel like it meets the standards based on the application.
Yeah, I would guess that Chris or Dan could probably answer my primary questions, and that I had one about, you know, the application for the blasting permit just highlights the roadway. Is that the only blasting that will be done, or is there blasting that will be done associated with the stormwater and other items? it was just a, a satellite view with the delineating with just a red marker that, where the Forest Glen was going to be as far as the area for blasting.
Most of the blasting is located in the first phase 3A. That's in the ledge area, we'll say. So it's basically 300 feet from Maryland Way. It's roughly where I consider most of the ledge to be. But we dug test pits within the pond area and we didn't see any ledge in that realm. So I think the soils improve as you head down the hill, but there may be some foundation footings that need to be popped, maybe the final foot or two, or maybe there's some trench blastings that need to occur a little bit further down the road. We expect them to do the blasting all at once, so that item is taken care of. So we can, and in the future, we'll use that material to finish the road.
All right, and but as far as extent to away from the proposed road, it's not going to be that far. Just trying to get some kind of spatial limit on the blasting being close to the proposed road or close to the back setbacks.
No, we're doing the 25 or 30 feet of the road for the sub base of the road, and we would probably do a trench on each property line to bring the water and sewer in. And what we're hoping is that we do one trench that would serve two lots, so we could bring the water and sewer in, and then 45 of them left and right for two houses. So yeah, we're definitely the main outcropping of the ledge is right in the center of the road, probably back half the distance, and then the road starts to fall away, and we get into a lot better soils. And we're not doing any improvements of the lots as far as the foundation. We're not digging any foundations. So if a builder ran into ledge, they'll jackhammer it or pop it if they need to.
Okay. All right. Anyone else on the board? We'll start with Dan again. Any questions?
Yeah, I think my only question, it looked like pretty much everything was in order. I did notice you had the pre-blast survey in there. I think it was 250-foot radius. And Andrew, is that the minimum required in the ordinance? I looked quickly and just couldn't find it.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. They met the standard. It is correct.
All right, perfect. That was really my only question, just clarifying that.
All right. Larry, did you have any questions?
Just so if there needed to be blasting for foundations, I'm assuming those would probably come under the jurisdiction of the CEO, depending upon what you might find.
It all predicated on the threshold of volume. So, I mean, yes, likely under 300 yards per foundation. So,
okay. And the only other comment that I have, and I guess I'm the typo person tonight, under the findings of fact in Andrew's memorandum, it mentions has considered the application of Highland Green. And I think it probably wants to say Mellet Wood in that, on that first page, finding of fact.
I should stop trying to personalize it and just use a boilerplate every time. Not even try to attempt to personalize it, because it never works. You're spot on.
But other than that, I'm fine. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Bruce, you find any typos?
Maybe not a typo, but the tax mapping lot. Is this R lot 17A or is this U21 lot 65?
This is U21 lot 65. The application that was scanned in and provided was corrected by hand with approval of the applicant over the phone. So the original one that's in the file has been marked up with the correct tax map lot number.
Just want my motion to be accurate, that's all.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
All right. Ron, do you have any questions?
Yeah. I'd like to add one more thing on the finding the facts is if they do run a crusher over there, that they use dust control to keep the dust, you know, so there won't be dust for the neighbors and stuff when they run a crusher.
Is there any particular method or device that they should use, or is it just, is there a standard best practice for dust control?
It's, they can run water through the crusher system.
Okay.
That's what we do. Because when they start crushing, they're gonna accumulate a lot of dust, guarantee you.
All right, and so add that as one of the conditions.
Yeah, conditions, not findings of fact, but
Okay.
conditions.
All right. Well, we'll open it up. This is a public hearing for a blasting permit, so I'll open it up to any comments that folks from the public may have on this. Andrew, do you see any raised hands yet? All right. Oh, wait. James seems to have his hand up. There we go.
Yeah, I got one thing.
Okay.
I would just like some amount of notice when it's happening. Some of us are still working from home. I have computer equipment I use. I don't need a hard drive crashing because there's explosions going off behind me while I'm trying to work. So need some amount of notice.
Yes, maybe Andrew, as far as the notification goes, I know, there's been, at least the package says there were the level, different various notifications already, but there's a set of signals and things for the blast. But what kind of notification is there for, like we're blasting tomorrow type of thing? You're muted. Nope.
They should be contacting Tom Lister as the code enforcement officer the day of in the morning. And then they use the signal system in order to actually alert to when the blast would take place during the blasting hours. If there was a representative here, sometimes other companies can do direct notification of abutters and adjacent property owners. But the general practice is just the signal system prior to an explosion.
All right, thank you, James. Any other questions from the public? See, Danielle Murray.
Yes, I'm at 14 Mallet. I also work from home. So just out of curiosity, how long will the blasting be going on for? Is it like a number of days? And like what times during the day? Is it like, oh, we can start at 6 a.m. or we don't start until 9? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, our guidelines are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the town in the ordinance. And that was, I think, in the package. But I don't know the exact timing that they have planned.
Are there certain days of the week that they can do the blasting, or is it every day?
Is it Monday through Friday, Andrew?
Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you expect the blasting to be done like in 2 days, or is it going to take you a month, or like how long should we be on edge for?
Okay. Dan or Chris, do you have a tentative plan once this is approved to when the blasting may start? And obviously it'll depend on how much ledge is found, how long.
I'm guessing because we're still working on that quantity. But I would think in 3 days, we'd probably be done.
Okay, and you're hoping to have them all like 3 days in a row?
You know, I know that they would like to mobilize and get the job done and get out of there, but you know, drill rigs break and, you know, stuff happens. So, you know, I don't want
Will
to.
be no. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, I'm not sure. It depends on how easy they drill the rock and what they have for breakdowns. So I would hope that they would be in and out of there in about 3 days.
Okay. Would we, as the neighborhood, be notified that you guys were completely done with the blasting at any time?
You know, Andrew, I don't know that we've ever done that. I mean, the blast would be pretty continuous, using the horn signals, and then, you know, I think, you know, depending on when they finished up, that would be the end of it. You wouldn't hear any more horns. So,
Okay. I'm just trying to, you know, sorry, guys.
You know, an easy way of communicating about both when blasting might take place and when it's all over might just be spray painting a piece of plywood on the edge of the property, you know, on the road, blasting next 3 days, or no more blasting, smiley face. Like, that'd be a super easy way of just communicating out to everyone.
That would be perfect. Just put something in the middle of the field out there. And I don't mind walking out there to read it.
well, you know, I think Andrew's right. Maybe put a sign out on Mallet Drive right at the end of Maryland. Would be the
Perfect
way to do it.
Well, Tom Lisser would probably also know too, wouldn't he?
Right. I was just going to say the same thing. I don't know if there's a way, Andrew, to share Tom's contact information, or the people on the call could go to the town website. The code enforcement officer could be a point of contact, I guess, for those people.
All right. So either contact Tom or look for the smiley face.
All right.
Excellent. Any other comments from the public? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Need to get a gavel here. Any other comments from the board or motion from the board?
Well, question.
Yeah.
Oh, if I may, I'm sorry.
No, let's jump right in.
Where we heard the comments before about the, you know, the trees and the various things that might be affected by blasting if, you know, branches shake loose or whatever. Do we want to potentially have a condition relating to that there'll be a review of that buffer area before blasting is commenced? Just a thought.
Yeah, Andrew, do you have anything to chime in on that? You're muted. He's probably saying something very interesting.
Have the buffer reviewed by whom and to what standard? So, you know, is it to assess it for dangerous trees, and whose dollar and who's the qualified person? It seems to me like, yeah, Dan's saying he's willing to walk the area. If you want someone, then the town can hire someone to go walk with the guy that Dan walks, and now Dan's paying for 2 guys to walk around in the woods arguing about what is a safe or unsafe tree, and all to something that doesn't have a standard. I see the concern and the anxiety. I'm not sure that conditioning it in that way is a good strategy.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to suggest maybe it could be captured in the pre-blast survey, or just
I think it's already been done, the pre-blast surveys. I think all that work has already been accomplished.
In my own
maybe, I mean, the.
My own thoughts are, some of the concerns about trees seem to be related to blasting. Some seem to be just related to trees. Dan offered to go out there and walk and try to meet with these landowners. I expect that he will. Making a condition of a blasting permit when that's not a, the nexus between all of it and blasting for me isn't close enough to make it a condition of a blasting permit. But I agree it's a valid concern. I was happy to hear that Dan expects to go out and walk with the property owners and try to take care of dangerous, imminently dangerous situations.
Thanks, Bruce. All right. Any other comments or questions from the board? Any motion from the board?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Pursuant to the blasting ordinance performance standards of the Topsham Code contained in Chapter 95, and subject to, based upon the findings of fact set forth in the memo to the board from Andrew dated the 16th, I hereby move that the blasting permit application for Mallet Woods Phase 3 tax map, U21 lot 65 be approved, subject to the 4 conditions of approval written in the memo dated April 16th, and with the addition of a 5th condition that if a crusher is to be utilized, that dust control, usually in the form of watering to prevent the dust, be implemented.
All right, and I hate doing this two
I'm
motions
glad.
in a row, but it's Chapter 85, I think.
That's what I said.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Well,
No,
that
you
one I
said
got right.
95. You said 95, Bruce.
95.
Okay, board, let's settle down.
I got to know in advance. I got to make these motions, Scott. This is a problem. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I stand corrected, and thank you for catching it. It's Chapter 85.
And I'll second the motion.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Patty, please show that it was unanimous.
And then it was Chapter 85. Make sure you got that, Patty.
Thank you very much.
If you're in town hall, I could have just slipped her a little note that said 85.
That's how I always used to get away with it. It's this Zoom
right.
stuff that there's zero tolerance here.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you, Chris.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
So the next item on our agenda is the JM Bedford LLC has applied for a site plan approval for a 2,000 square foot restaurant at 51 Topsham Fair Mall Road, tax map R05B lot 9A1. And Andrew, did you have a intro?
This is more of the application that you saw for the first time 2 weeks ago. This is the Jersey Mike's standalone sub shop with the takeout window between the new highbrow located at the former Ruby Tuesdays and Norway Savings Bank. I mentioned in my brief email to you this afternoon that we still have some outstanding technical review comments. And that we received the revised plans on Friday. I took a look at them Friday and today. Things are generally in pretty good order, though there's still some outstanding questions about the sidewalk and landscaping along the frontage, and what the intentions are with either constructing or paying into a lieu fund or waiving the requirement for sidewalk in its entirety. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. There's also an associated conditional use permit that needs to have a legal public hearing associated with it as well. The applicant's conditional use standards, their replies to them were included in the application. We see no anxieties with the conditional use being brought forward for approval.
All right, thank you, Andrew. So it sounds like there are a number of outstanding reviews and items. I know we didn't get to the point of getting a findings of fact and a list of conditions. So Kurt, were you going to provide a PowerPoint of the changes and things from the last time we saw you?
I was going to walk through it with the PDF. Yep. And I recognize the turnaround was kind of short on this one. We thought we were going to be able to do one meeting per sketch and final if it were, and procedurally that was not how that was going to work, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So let me fire up my screen sharing. Not much has changed under the existing conditions, believe it or not. We're still out here at the location that's been indicated. Sorry. Try that again. With the annotate button right next to the stop share. So the site's going to go in. It'll interrupt this current landscaped island and fit right in the area. One of the things that was discussed amongst staff after the first meeting was if this existing parcel boundary changed, the codes enforcement officer was looking for some things that made it fairly difficult. And the only reason we were changing it was going to be to match the parcel with the leased area. That's not necessary. So we're not doing a subdivision amendment, and you're not going to be approving one tonight. See if I can do it this way. Sometimes this Zoom thing's just not all it's cracked up to be.
Sometimes.
Okay, so the site plan is fairly similar to what was discussed. There was comments at the staff meeting to if we could increase the landscaping area by narrowing this aisle a little bit. And since we do have angled parking, we're able to accommodate that. So this landscaped area has been increased. There's a additional landscaping coming in here where we did narrow the site entrance exit onto this main drive aisle. One of the comments I received actually yesterday from the traffic reviewing engineer was that the way we had planned to bring folks from the sidewalk across to match up with this was not the best approach according to the MUTCD, and getting pedestrians around. It was preferred to come to a new sidewalk crossing right across the front of the aisle there. And so we changed that plan. The addition that's coming through here was where we were going to widen that parking island anyway. And then again, just come right on across. So that was easy to accommodate, and actually got a couple spaces back for the mall owner. So I'm sure he's happy about that. We did narrow down this exit only from here as part of the increasing the landscaped area as well. Stu K called me this morning and asked to make sure that this sewer line shows 8-inch sewer, which it did show 6, so he changed that. Andrew mentioned the sidewalk out front, and we did have additional discussion about how that was going to look. I think there was an intention of the landscaping going in there. Wanted to see if there more could be installed. There is a 4-inch gas line that runs right down the middle of that median, which really makes large trees or even significant shrubbery going over that size of a gas line, a little bit problematic. So we're proposing just to extend the irrigation sleeve. You can see here, come out to irrigate these landscaped islands and the one out front. So we'll make sure we have a good healthy stand of grasses that can be maintained. And the waiver versus fee in lieu, I did calculate a fee. I don't think anybody has a problem paying it. Some of the feedback I received from staff was when they receive small quantities of money in an escrow towards a project whose date is undetermined, they kind of don't know what to do with $5,000 or $6,000 towards a sidewalk. So I think the preference would be to ask for the waiver. I understand if the board and staff would prefer to get some money in an escrow, that would certainly not be a problem.
Well, and it's not an escrow, it's a payment to a fund.
Fair enough. Let's see, got the landscape plan in there, but nothing particularly changed, even with the changes that we discussed. Sorry about that. I just still propose that we're going to, like I said, screen and landscape here with the same level of plantings that we had over at the Panera building. And then out here up front, plan to remove all the soils and everything, the bark mulch, et cetera, that out front that has been inundated by salt for probably 20, 30 years. Replace it with fresh lawn. Looks like the prior presentation is the point-by-point light. I'm sorry, did I miss something?
Kurt, we lost you. You froze up for about, I don't know, 20 seconds or so, and then your screen went off.
Oh, am I back?
Well, not your, there you go.
Huh.
Now we can see your ugly mug.
Okay, well, technology is great until it's not. I was just saying that the points in the lighting plan were not in the PDF that I had sent in. So I did turn them on if there's any interest in those. It's kind of maybe a moot point being in the middle of a parking lot with so many lights, but this does show that the lighting proposed for this particular use will keep appropriate lighting levels throughout the parking and the drive-through area. And that lighting goes to about 0 at the property line, where all the other lighting out there will take over. And then the last thing I did include in here because there was some discussion last time about how the traffic would flow. And the intent for the circulation coming in through this main signalized intersection would be to come around and back down this aisle, circulate through the pickup window, and then go either direction to get back to Topsham Fairmall Road. Or they could, if they miss this exit or they choose not to go in there, they could come back around on the blue line and continue. This shows the pedestrian connection going through the way I envisioned it, and that of course has been corrected. So hopefully we've answered the questions that have been brought up. There was some conversation in the memo that was mostly relieved when we decided not to do the subdivision plan. I'd be happy to take questions from the board and public if there is any.
All right, thank you, Kurt. Open up to the board. With this plan going, Bruce, you're the first person I see, so do you have any questions or comments or?
Not anything other than, oh, sorry. I was looking at that nice sketch that you did for me, Kurt, there, so I could figure out how you get there. Is there going to be any wayfinding or anything? I mean,
yes, there will.
You take the right, at the intersection, and you're going to be looking right to the left, and it's going to tell you to go straight, or
Yep.
past it, and you go, oh, I want to go right, and you just That one is intuitive, right? You'll just wait for your first curb cut. You'll take a right and get in there. So that one I think is somewhat intuitive. So
And then the one that's at the closer to the building, there'll be a sign that's probably about maybe 2 by 3 or 2 by 4 feet. I have the Jersey Mike's logo, drive through with an arrow. Same way Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks would do it. Be sitting right on the island. And similarly, when you come in by the new highbrow, we intend to have a sign also indicating to go that way. I said drive through, that's going to cost me $5. It's a pickup window.
It's a pickup window. It's not a drive-through. Because you can't order there, right? That's the difference.
Correct. There'll be no menu board. They're not supposed to be stacking of vehicles other than, 1 or 2. You go online, you get a time slot, and you go get your meal.
And everyone will show up at the appointed minute.
I can't help that. I know it's mostly working at Chipotle, and they don't even have a drive up.
No, I guess my only question is more to staff, and I'm catching up on the procedural status. No subdivision with conditional use, and are they looking for that tonight? Is that my understanding? And approval tonight?
Yes.
Yeah, they're seeking approval of both tonight. I see no hesitation with the conditional use. I do think, with both our traffic engineer and our regular peer engineer reviewer, having both them having outstanding comments, I have a little bit of hesitation moving forward aggressively. I had a casual conversation with Tom Erica this afternoon, talking about when I was going to get his comments, frankly. And he had some anxiety about the traffic generation rates for the use. And when we start talking about those kinds of things, I get more anxious about that being a staff decision. And frankly, the applicant and staff coming to some sort of good consensus about impact fees, because those traffic and generation numbers feed into the impact fees for this project. So I'd rather have the board's blessing on that component, which means, frankly, waiting to get Erico's thoughts.
Well,
along those lines, Kurt, it sounded like that was not a huge hurdle on your end. It's 2 weeks. We're back here in 2 weeks, May 4th.
I don't think it's going to be the deciding factor. No. I understand. I hadn't heard anything about comments from Tom Erico. I guess you haven't received them. And I didn't know if you were getting comments, or if I hadn't seen any comments from Tom Saucier. So I didn't know there was anything outstanding, frankly.
Yeah.
If there are, we're happy to address them as always.
yeah, and if I can, Mr. Chair, I know you would, Kurt, just in the plans came in, the little pedestrian change, that was today, if I understand, or that's one thing, but the rest of the plans, when I'm trying to sense, the reasonableness of our peer review or timetables, or when did they get them to review?
This one here was foreshortened because we were going to be coming back quickly, but we submitted everything to the town on this 3 weeks ago. And then we jumped in on the last planning board to do the preliminary review. So that was running concurrent with the rest of the normal review. But we did submit 3 weeks prior to this date with this package. Our traffic engineer was on some vacation and didn't come back with her comments, which resulted in that little sidewalk change until yesterday. And apparently we're all scrambling out here in the consultant world because Tom Erico hasn't gotten back, and I don't know about Tom. Did you say you did receive some comments from Tom Saucier?
Not yet, but I'm expecting from both of them. Yeah, and yeah, those guys got all their comments the day that or all the plans the day that I received them from you. It takes a little bit of time to get Tom Erico fired up because we have to engage him through a contract, and that requires us going back and forth. We can't start the contract until we get the escrow in hand from the applicant, because we're not willing to engage in that contract and seek his services till we have the dollars to cover it. So Erica's had it now for a week and 2 days, 9 business days or something like that. 7 business days, a week and a half business wise. That seems like a pretty reasonable turnaround for a review. A week and a half, that's pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the week and a half. The 3 weeks feels a little different, if that's when they were sitting on it. And I just like to keep the process as expeditious as possible. I tend to agree with you, Andrew. If there are outstanding comments from 2 peer reviewers, I'd like to know them. And I have little doubt, again, that I expect Kurt will take every one of them and, address them in some manner. But just 2 weeks ago, I, said not fully baked. And so I got to apply a similar standard, at least for me. Right now, I would, on a separate track, Andrew, there are ways you can streamline contracting through master agreements with just work orders and notice and that kind of thing, so that you can get people on board with a phone call, and you take some risk, and but the risk would be only like Kurt or somebody sending an email saying, yes, we'll cover that, and boom, you're done, and then you can get going. So that's a separate process thing that is not related to this specific thing, but I'd like to try to find ways to always be as efficient as we can, so that we're not hung up with being one, I can say it, with legal stuff and contracting junk. Get right to the meat of the matter would be better. So one difficult timing thing that I'll bring up, because this is just generally a topic of administration and procedures, is conditional use permits. Like, this project requires conditional use permit in addition to site plan. Notification requirements for conditional use permit are different. So we have to send an advertisement to the newspaper 2 weeks ago. So essentially, the moment that we get the application, I have to make the decision, is this going to go in 3 weeks as a project generally? And for something like this, which is, infill, small commercial site inside of an established shopping center, seems relatively straightforward. But yet we've got all these mechanics that are moving quickly, and now it's sort of like, oh, we've advertised a public hearing, we need to move forward, but yet things still aren't baked out. Do I put the pause on this and then we spend more dollars on advertisement? And it's just a mess. And I think the general direction is we need to have perhaps a little bit more room in our review cycle internally. Maybe it goes to a month from 3 weeks, and we tighten up some of our notification requirements so everything's nice and consistent as well. But those are all sidebar things, and I've now extended our meeting by another 10 minutes. So I'll be quiet. I'm sorry.
Well,
You and I
note for
together
the
cost
board,
10 minutes, Andrew.
yeah, I
We're
would say
here
for
all
the,
night, Andrew.
the board's benefit, the staff, Rod and Andrew, initiated the meeting with some of the landowners, Chris and myself, as the most common applicants, to talk about process. And one of the things that was I think consensus item was the idea of a pre-application meeting with town staff, just to try to clear up any expectations, anything slightly different about this project, this one here. Hey, how's that drive-through work? Are we going to need to get traffic engineers involved and looking at stuff? I think that is a great idea before a formal submission is made. I would sure love to give that a shot before we go through a 4-week submission cycle if possible. But no, I understand that everybody right now is just flat out. And if the peer reviewers aren't able to respond quickly, it causes angst all around. So we got to do what we got to do to make this a good process. That said, other than the peer review comments, does the board have anything about this particular layout that we should air out? And regardless of whether or not this gets tabled pending peer review comments, we would request that the conditional use is reviewed and hopefully approved tonight.
I think we had talked about that before, and that if this did get tabled, that we would, move on and take that item up tonight, since it's, had its public notice, and well, we don't have any attendees left, but
Good.
but yeah, we'll move on to that one post with after we talk about all the process. No. So getting back to the project, were there any other comments from the board? Definitely get back to, trying to provide some input, Kurt, especially on, it sounds like we're looking for some input on where direction of the board on the sidewalks, as far as payment in lieu, payment in to the sidewalk fund, et cetera, and also maybe on the landscaping. And I think those are things we can provide input on. Before we go there, Bruce, were you all set with questions for now?
Yes.
Okay. Dan, you looked eager to ask something.
Kurt, can you bring up that traffic circulation plan again? That's actually a really good figure.
Best work you've done all year, Kurt.
Wow.
Okay, great. So I was kind of looking at the the loops of the traffic circulation and so forth, and then we have the all the existing parking stalls across the front facing Topsham Fair Mall Road, kind of, and they go all the way to that island where you have the right-hand turn exit. So I guess I was questioning, with the additional, and maybe this is more of a question for the traffic peer reviewer. Does this traffic circulation create any conflicts with having these parking stalls kind of perpendicular to Topsham Fair Mall Road, particularly if you start to get some queuing of traffic with a stoplight? Of course, with Jersey Mike's, it's probably going to be a popular place. So I was just questioning whether, all of those traffic stalls perpendicular to the island there in front of the project are needed. And maybe, could that become some additional landscape buffer opportunity and also alleviate some potential traffic conflicts? Just, I'm not an expert in this area, but I thought it would be worth bringing up, particularly with that right turn exit. At least the first few spots, few spaces near that, I definitely have seen queuing of traffic there. And I don't see a lot of people parking there, to be honest with you, along the front of Topsham Fair Mall Road. I think when Ruby Tuesdays was in business, obviously there was a lot of people that parked in front of Ruby Tuesdays, but this doesn't seem like the type of restaurant where you're going to use a lot of that parking in the front there. So.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and I think it is something that can be discussed with the traffic engineers. I kind of thought that some of these up front might be utilized by their employees to free up the ones that are closest to their door. And I think, well, I don't know, some of the spaces out there get seasonally used by an ice cream guy or a tree guy. I'm not sure exactly how that works. But I think it's a fair question. And I'm sure, Andrew, you're going to bring it up with your guy. The thing I'm wondering about, though, I mean, to your question is, if cars queue up back into the parking lot waiting for the light to cycle, would that be interfering with people's use of those spaces? I guess it certainly could, as with any of the other businesses along there. I'm thinking of in front of Panera. But if these were employee spaces, presumably they wouldn't be coming and going while people are getting their sandwiches. And if those spaces were not made available, if they were landscaped, I don't know that's going to help the queuing scenario here, other than not trapping somebody.
Right, that's more what I was thinking, or someone,
Right.
Where you could have a scenario where you have a couple different maneuvers going on in that area, and someone backing out may not be looking.
Sure.
I think there's some reasonable what if scenarios maybe to run by the traffic people that deal with this type of, urban type parking and traffic circulation scenarios.
Well, I know under current design philosophy, we would never design a mall or a busy shopping center with these spots so close to the main road that they're coming in off of. But that die was cast in 1980 or so, so we're making the best of it. At least it's got this raised island coming in to really help deconflict some of it.
And then, Kurt, there was another, when you changed the sidewalk, the pedestrian crosswalk location, there was a comment about eliminating parking spaces within 220 feet of it.
No.
Or was that not clear?
Well, that was a comment, but in this situation, just getting them out so no one's walking out between a parked car was the best compromise scenario here. I think in order to accomplish what that was discussing, we might have to eliminate one or two of these on the end of this stall. But on behalf of John Larson, who owns the rest of it, and just knowing seasonally and during peak hours, I was not intending to eliminate those parking spaces. If Tom Errico comes back with some comments along that lines, then obviously we take a look at it.
And I guess my only other comment would be with the sidewalk waiver. I guess if there was a sidewalk that if you had to comply with it, has there been any thought to the extent of the sidewalk? Would it even make sense to try to extend some sort of sidewalk to comply with the ordinance on this project?
Well, Andrew talked about it a little bit last time, but the intent with the work that has been done through committees and with Tom Errico on TY Land is to widen this whole island by eliminating most of this traffic lane. It already goes down to one lane going south towards Target. And so this would also grow out, absorb that lane, and then you're going to have an additional 12 feet that the sidewalk could run down the middle. You could have nice separation from the vehicles and places for landscaping. So that would run the entire length in front of this. The whole thing adds questions about how it would extend back out to Route 196, because this is even narrower here in front of the Norway Savings. But part of the point is, I think your point, if you built it in front of this restaurant, it would basically come to nowhere.
Right.
And it would probably be pushed to a location that isn't working well with the overall plan. So whether it's deferred participation in that cost, or if it's a waiver, the players right now will participate. Part of my discussion with Andrew is if this goes on long enough and we all retire and the next mall owner comes out and they say, well, I don't want to pay for a sidewalk, I guess that becomes a future problem. So if the idea was to get the money now and approvals for, I think we figured out 700, no, whatever the length of the sidewalk was out front.
Said 700 feet of sidewalk. I heard it.
Yeah, okay. So again, $6,000 worth of sidewalk. We could put it in a piggy bank and they could put it in their desk drawer until that comes along. If that's the board's direction, we'll make sure that's part of the approval.
And just one more thing, as far as the landscaping standards, Kurt, does this project meet all the, the front, the side, and the back? I know you had mentioned you were kind of using the similar standard to the Panera Bread out front. that accurate?
Yeah, it meets it for the parking lot standard. The problem we have with the frontage, of course, is it's in the right of way. And we do have the gas line here. So we talked it over with Andrew and, acknowledged the problems with some of those standards. This is just a weird lot in that the front line runs diagonally through some parking stalls. And how do you landscape that? So I don't know if that warrants a waiver based on the condition, or just say that it meets it to the greatest extent possible. Andrew, do you have comments on that?
Well, is lawn meeting it to the greatest extent possible? I don't think that lawn is the greatest extent possible. It's something more than just grass, but I agree that it's not street trees every 30 feet plus multi-stem clumps and multiple. I understand that there are some physical constraints to these spaces. Another opportunity would be just to defer all these costs, and I don't know, maybe it's at such time as we do provide space out there, you plant it. To that
Well,
the
other thing is that landscaping typically is on the applicant's parcel. There's some portion of it in the frontage that's in a setback that is there to be landscaped. And this out parcel of the mall, its property line is way back here. Again, it runs through the parking stalls and the main drive aisle. So technically they wouldn't have the access to this. I don't think anyone's going to complain about irrigating and turning that salt-filled mulch plant into a better irrigated thing.
Here's the big conundrum for me on both the sidewalk and the landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
We have a great plan for out here. We know that we all want it. The owners indicate that they want it. We have no certainty that it's going to be developed. We have no resources to make sure that it does get developed. We have these underlying goals that say we want to improve the aesthetics of the mall. We want to eliminate impervious areas and handle the salt and chlorides issue in the watershed. This is an auto-oriented use in an auto-oriented place, but yet we also have deficient pedestrian infrastructure. So it's like this whole balancing act, and I'm not sure what to require when and who to have fund what portion, because ultimately the town could not move forward on this plan. And we want to have an improved area out here. The code currently requires improvements to both the pedestrian infrastructure as well as the landscaping to achieve these goals that have already been adopted by the community. So we already have the tool and the vision for this area, but we all agree that it doesn't make sense for them to install it as it is. So what the heck do we do? This is why I put this conversation to the board after wringing our hands last week between Kurt and myself. So.
Just a quick follow-up that to Andrew. Maybe one potential takeaway. Obviously, we have the approval for the Jersey Mike, but it looks like that area kind of captures the highbrow part of that parking area as well. So maybe, obviously, it wouldn't be a condition of approval for this particular project potentially, but maybe as an overall discussion with the property owner, or whoever owns the highbrow, which I believe is Mr. Larson, maybe there could be a springboard to a discussion of an incremental improvement project for the mall that kind of fronts those two new businesses.
Well, and frankly, we have started conversations going in that direction of, all right, well, that just that little portion between Panera and Norway Savings, let's bite that bucket. We can grab a couple of dollars from this fund and we match that up with some sidewalk fund dollars. We can piece something together in the next 3 years for this stretch.
And along those lines, though, I mean, for the sidewalk, putting the $6,000 towards the 700-foot sidewalk, joking about the 700 feet, Kurt.
I get it.
I mean, that is a step in that direction. And is there a way that there can be a landscape payment in lieu? Obviously, it wouldn't be the same amount of money, but also goes into that pot. I mean, the can keeps going down the road, but we can start putting a little savings in that can. So if it is 2 or 3 years, that those funds are there. So I don't think we have it stipulated in the ordinance that there's a payment in lieu for landscaping, but it seems like the sidewalk that, at least, wait for other folks on the board, it seems like that is the path of least resistance for trying to make this vision or contribute to the vision of what the sidewalk should be. Obviously, making the applicant meet that ordinance and put a sidewalk in makes absolutely no sense. But having a waiver that it just disappears doesn't make much sense either. So it seems like that payment in lieu going into the sidewalk fund is a good step forward. And I don't know how we do a similar thing for the landscaping, except that there's some buy-in. I see we do have an attendee that may have some comments on this when we open up to the public.
The one thing I would say about the landscaping is that you could potentially condition that at such time as there is a landscaped area in front or an available space, that they would contribute a
couple trees.
How do you quantify? Is it what they would design? Would they design something today and then they build that? That doesn't make a lot of sense either. I don't know that they would participate. Maybe you can condition something related to landscaping. How you define it, I'm still wrestling with.
Well, I mean, clearly the sidewalk is a bigger chunk of change than putting a couple trees in. So, maybe we just leave it at that for this.
Okay, well, I'm hearing money. I'm hearing that the money will be contributed.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Or you condition the landscape sidewalks, Scott.
The one thing I just going to point out that ultimately, with these improvements all being in the right of way, you're going to have to be a crafty contract with the landowners behind it to maintain landscaping and sidewalk infrastructure, whatever, in the public right of way. So that I think everybody agrees in the beauty, the beautification, and the curb appeal of this for the entire retail center. But
I foresee, street trees that are required right now by the code go in the right of way and they become the town's ownership, just like other infrastructure that's built by private property owners in the right of way. I kind of see an overarching landscaping scheme within the Topsham Fair Mall is probably being the town's responsibility and being maintained by the town, either through tax dollars or through a special service district or some sort of special assessment on that area. So I don't think it'll be as much private owners maintaining the landscaping in the right of way as much as just the town stepping up and doing it like we do it on 196 and near the intersection of Main Street too.
All right, were there other comments from the board or questions from the board?
Just a quick observation. Andrew, have you heard of the Business Partnership Initiative up at DOT?
I've used it before.
It's generally 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 town, businesses, and DOT to do things. You can get significant stuff done. I'm hearing a lot about town desires, abutting business desires, and I've never heard anyone that turns down a third money from the state if they're willing to do something. So it's for conundrums such as this. And I think the last time you talked about what the overall construction costs, the whole vision, I don't think it was crazy out of whack from what that program is. Okay. So you might be able to take a significant bite. I mean, we will never get away from the conundrum that towns think in terms of evolution and gradual and what would be great long-term, and applicants have to think transactionally in today. That's always going to be a problem. And unless you're going to up the impact fees significantly so that it's not $6,000 they're putting in. And I'm not suggesting that, but that's the only way if you're trying to get money to raise enough money to do something. Every town I've ever seen has an impact fee so low that it's not enough to really do anything except maybe keep planning stuff. So you might need a different tool for a different job. That's all. Well, I'm fine with taking the $6,000, but it's like, for what? You know,
That
That's all I-
$6,000 will pay for engineering of that whole curb extension in between Panera and Norway. That'll handle it. That'll be the contribution for this project. Done.
There you go.
Right,
I
any
doubt
other
6,000
items?
will cover it, but go ahead.
Larry or Ron, did you guys have anything?
I'm all set for right now, Scott.
Yeah, my only other comment, and just in passing, I assumed when this first came before us that we'd have to go someplace else to get our hanging plants. The seasonal use of that front area would probably not be happening anymore. I don't know how it ends up, if it does happen, how it impacts the potential traffic out there, because they take up quite a bit of space when they're out there. So maybe that'll be something we can talk about with the traffic engineers, or maybe you can ask them. Or maybe,
Well, I guess I'd ask John
maybe
Larson
we can
when he's
open it up
thinking.
to the public, and John's hand can go down and he can chime in on it.
Am I on?
You are, John.
Thank you. I apologize that I had to enter a little bit late. I really appreciate the comment with regard to the seasonal occupancy of the site by Sunset Farms. I just had this conversation with Roy Wallace this week. It was always my intention. I really like having the seasonal spring planting, planters, all that stuff, and the ice cream stand there. I think it adds a lot of nice vitality to the property, and I am very anxious to keep it that way. Roy, you'll be interested to know, is equally concerned about not having traffic concerns. But for the time being, we're sort of just going to see how it goes this year. He was less concerned about the spring activities than he was about the Christmas tree sales in the winter. Since Jersey Mike's is not likely to be open until September or early October, then obviously the spring situation I don't think is going to be unduly affected by construction. So we'll just have to see what happens in the winter. But rest assured, I will do everything in my power to figure out a way to allow the continued presence of Sunset Farms and Sunset Sundays on the property. I think it's a very important, valuable, attractive seasonal addition to the property. And the last thing I want to do is create a situation where it's no longer tenable to operate there. And obviously Sunset Farms would like to continue to be there. And we're just going to have to figure out a way to try and make that happen so that the two uses can coexist without any safety issues between them.
And just to follow up on that, is there the possibility and option to move, over to the, to the area where the ice cream truck is, over in those parking stalls that?
Yes, yes, that's an excellent point. We've already agreed that the ice cream stand, the ice cream truck is likely this year to be relocated to the parking spaces that are immediately adjacent. What I call the reader board sign that's on the opposite corner from Topsham, from the Norway Savings Bank. And that will free up the area that you're talking about where the stand had been located to create more area for both the spring and the Christmas tree sales. I'm hopeful that that will resolve the problem. I'm hopeful it won't be a problem, but it certainly relocating the ice cream stand will help. I think it's actually a better location. I've always felt it was a better location in terms of visibility from the road, et cetera. So yeah, that's definitely in the game plan right now.
All right, thank you. All right, any other questions? Or, I mean, we'll have to, we can table this. We can bring up the conditional use as a separate item on the agenda. So I think we have to make a decision on this before we open up the conditional use item. But are there other questions that you have for us, Kurt? That's any ambiguity that you're hearing from us on any of these issues?
No, I think we're clear. As soon as I hear comments from peer reviewers, we'll respond. If at all possible, we'll respond to me back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
With that, I'd move to table.
And do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion to table and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous in favor, Patty. All right, we'll move on to the final item on the agenda, and that's for the JM Bedford LLC applying for the conditional use permit for a 2,000 square foot restaurant at 51 Topsham Fair Mall, tax map R5B in lot 9A1. And I think the conditional use is for a fast food restaurant in the MUC. Correct?
It is, yes.
It has nothing to do with the pickup window.
It does not. It appears to meet the conditional use standards. Kurt did a great job of providing a narrative that identifies how he believes that the project meets those standards. I would follow his lead when it comes to forming findings of fact. There's nothing that holds you up from making a decision tonight on the conditional use permit as opposed to the site plan approval.
All right. Kurt, did you have anything you wanted to say before I open up to the board for any questions?
No, like I said, I think it lays out well. As did Panera. Was happily had to find that written right up front. I think I changed all the names as appropriate, the lots. But I think it's very consistent with the other uses in the mall. And I think the standards speak for themselves.
All right, anyone have any questions on the board before we open it up for a public hearing? Hearing none, we'll open it up for a public hearing. If anyone has any comments or questions they'd like to ask. Seeing that John has none, we'll close the public hearing. Oh, wait, sorry, the hand came up.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm not used to this, so forgive me. This is all new to me in terms of raising my hand by technology. This is very cool. Just briefly, I just want to say that I'm going to use this kind of a strange word, thrilled to be able to bring this before the town. As many of you, maybe all of you are aware, for as long as my wife and I have owned this property, the town has made a point of saying that they were hopeful that at some point we would be able to do something additional along the Topsham Fair Mall road frontage. Nobody was particularly enthused about having expanses of parking as what you see when you drive by. And many of you may already know this, but for those of you who don't, the reason why I was never able to do that is when we made the deal for Ruby Tuesday precluded me from being able to do anything on this lot because they didn't want to have anything interfering with the visibility of their restaurant. I thought that was rather stupid, but I wasn't going to look at a gift horse in the mouth. Obviously, it was an important deal for us financially. So I agreed to accept that restriction. And frankly, and this is going to sound really stupid, but nonetheless, I was living with that restriction for 17 years. And when Ruby Tuesday went the way of all things last spring, it never even dawned on me until August, believe it or not, that the restriction went with them. And I had been turning away people over the years consistently because of that restriction, but then it suddenly dawned on me, oh, gee, I can now do something. So I made it known to a couple of people that, gee, I think I have the right to do something here. But I was equally concerned that I did not want to do anything anywhere near as big as Ruby Tuesday, because I felt that it would be a gross overuse of the parking lot. It would obstruct visibility. It just would be way out of character. So I was literally looking for something, you know, around 2,000 square feet or so, and along came Jersey Mike's, and it is exactly, you know, I had done some sketches in terms of what I thought would be a perfect configuration, and this use matched them to a T. So I was absolutely ecstatic about the opportunity to put a building of the right size that wouldn't infringe unduly on other tenants or the parking lot, and also be finally able to do something that was addressing a concern and a desire that the town had had for years. So I'm very happy that this is before you, and I hope it is something that you feel is addressing something the town has been looking for a long time.
All right, thank you, John. And now I'm going to close the public hearing. Any additional comments from the board? If not, we
Only that I'm
entertain a
0 for 2, so I'm looking for someone else to make a motion. Batting 0 for 2 tonight.
Someone else stepping to the plate? We have a designated hitter, pinch hitter. Uh-oh, don't see anyone. Okay.
I don't.
Larry, you making a motion?
No, I don't have anything prepared. I'm sorry. I fully expected Bruce to be doing this, so.
Well, you know.
All right, Bruce, you gotta, get back on that horse.
Well, there is no memo, right? This is a.
I can walk us through it and maybe.
Just give me the section, the proper section number. Let's start with that for a conditional use permit.
Yep.
That would be a good start.
225. All right, so. $225.67.
225-67.
Correct. That's conditional use
And
permits.
some draft findings of fact that Kurt laid out. Is that what I understand?
Yeah,
Yes,
in
correct.
his
And that
memo
was in a
from
letter
April
dated
15th.
when?
April 15th.
What? April 15th.
Yep.
And the tax map and lot, let me go back.
R05B, lot 9.
Yeah,
A1.
got it. Okay, let's take a shot. Pursuant to Topsham Code 225-67 and consistent with the proposed findings of fact set forth in a letter from Sightlines to the town dated April 15th, I hereby move that the conditional use as a fast food restaurant meets the standards and is hereby approved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments?
Only in that we should add the tax map reference 05-B L9-A-1. That's the lot.
Yes.
So I corrected myself.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So it was unanimous in favor, Patty. Thank you, Kurt and John,
Thank you.
and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yep, we'll put it back in the oven 350 for a little bit longer.
And do we have any other motions out there?
To adjourn,
Motion
yes.
to adjourn?
There we go. There in a second.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor? Again, unanimous, Patty. You can vote yes too if you want to. All right. Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Hey.